Yeah, I apologize. That's fine. Yes, thank you so much indeed. Shall I introduce myself as well, or you start the recording first? That's fine. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Maria, for your kind introduction. This has been great for me, and thanks a lot for meeting such a sympathetic person over long distance. These Zoom calls, or what is the system we are using, are always a substitution for direct encounter. But I'm very happy to meet with you, and I have been 2 or 3 times in Buenos Aires myself, but that is long back, and so I know a bit on the context you are living and working in, and I congratulate Rich Foundation that they are working together with you, and that also many other NGOs and international organizations can benefit from your services and advice. Myself, I'm Dietrich Werner. I'm a professor for intercultural and ecumenical theology, particular focus on ecumenical ethics and also eco-theology and sustainable development. I have been an ordained, and I still am, an ordained pastor from Protestant churches, and we have an interest certainly to relate also to Latin American churches, both Protestant and Catholic. And myself, I have worked both in a local parish, but that is long ago, but then later in university education in Hamburg University and also in Bochum University, where I did my PhD in the history of the ecumenical movement. And then I worked for many years in a regional mission agency, which also has relations to churches in Latin America in Hamburg. And I was closely associated with the umbrella organization of all mission boards in Germany, which is called EMW, an organization which is very well known also by Daniel Barros, my colleague and friend since many years. And to cut a longer story short, I worked then for a long period for World Council of Churches in Geneva, which is called WCC, and I was the head or director of the International Department of Higher Education or Theological Education. And that brought me together also with institutions and networks of higher education in Latin America. So we worked with CETELA and many other similar networks. We tried also to reach out to the Roman Catholic institutions and to new institutions from charismatic Pentecostal background as far as they wanted to contribute and be in dialogue with us. And our concern was very much about contextualization of theological education in the current circumstances, particularly in facing the need to be more concerned about sustainable development and the deep ecological crisis which we find ourselves in. And actually, my main project, which is quite recent, but we might also go to this at a later stage, but just to mention to you, is to do a major international publication project where my colleague and friend Daniel Barros has been of great support, and it was a very stimulating partnership. We did the conceptual work at this end while I was still busy. Yeah, I forgot to mention, I served also with Bread for the World. Bread for the World is the major Protestant development agency in Germany, quite a big organization, and they work also with Gustav Adolf Werk and other agencies which are more related to Latin America. And so we worked on the production of an international teaching and research handbook on eco-theology, which is called International Handbook on Creation Care, Care for Creation, and Eco-Diaconia, which is a new term which we coined to underline that there is not only diaconia in the social dimension, that we serve other people who are in need and discriminated against, but we also need to serve and develop a new understanding of providing service, help, and support for suffering nature, because we live in harmony with nature and harmony, and nature supports us as long as we are supporting also the regeneration of nature. So this is our biblical understanding, which we see in the New and Old Testament deeply founded. And in that regard, we were quite excited to do a world handbook on creation care and eco-diaconia, which was done in joint cooperation with Red Foundation. And we even had an international seminar and also a presentation of the book in Latin American circles. And they were also able, under the leadership of Daniel Barros, to do one Spanish version of this book, which was then produced in Argentina and distributed all around in Spanish-speaking Latin American countries. So that was a big success, and I think the seminars which are nowadays going on in many parts of the world, in both in Africa, in African context, I've been a lot also traveling in the African continent and also in Latin America and Asia. That is due to the joint efforts which were done primarily between Daniel Barros and myself. So I'm deeply indebted and grateful for the collaboration we had with Red Foundation. And if it would not be the existence of a very network and a very committed network like Red Foundation, we would have missed a proper strategic partner in Latin America. So it is very important for us that Red Foundation has a strong rootedness in the Latin American, particularly in the Argentinian context, but at the same time is very open for international collaboration and also joint projects. And so we together convened also meeting of supporting partners of Red Foundation, who coming from Germany and surrounding countries. So I was able to bring together some of the other partners as well, which are of support. And so EKD was involved in Gustav Adolf Werk and many other partners, so that there is also a little financial contribution, I believe, of EKD churches now for the library project. You might have heard that there is also this kind of huge project of rescuing the ancient library and that it will find a new home, which I heard is a very interesting and beautiful home now, a very classical building. I have not seen it, but I saw a video presentation at an earlier stage, but I don't know how it is looking like now. So I'm very proud of the work which is done by Red Foundation, and I wish all God's blessings for all the colleagues working for this. And I hope that also the process to be in registration with the university, that this runs out quite smoothly, and then will benefit also the wider constituency in Argentina. I stop with this. I can go on for a long time, but you need to stop me. You mean global institutions in total, just as a generic term for all of them? As far as I know, the past work and also ongoing concerns of RED, it would be primarily to deepen the understanding of Latin American churches in ecumenical social ethics. This is justice issues in the field of economy. This is kind of sustainable ecology in the field of, well, general ecological concerns. And this is also issues of peace and of dialogue with indigenous cultures and indigenous people. I do think that Red, as being a representative of Argentinian churches plus other churches, and I hope that the whole community of churches supporting Red will grow, because that also was not always easy, I think, in the past, because some churches have chosen their own path for particular reasons. But that the community of churches supporting Red will grow, because this would also provide Red with a larger um, platform to be visible internationally. And I know that Red is related both to Lutheran World Federation and to Reformed World Alliance, and also to World Council of Churches. These are very important international church bodies, and also to ACT Alliance, which is the social service wing of the World Christianity organizations, which are mainly related to the ecumenical movement. And I think to have an important regional counterpart like RED in Latin America is very, very crucial for international organizations. Because if I might explain this from my limited understanding, but you have much bigger understanding as being from the region and can complement. Some of the churches in Latin America and also in Argentina have followed an orientation which is more conservative, even sometimes fundamentalist, and very inward looking, and not so much relating the gospel and the world. And I think it is very important that with Red Foundation we have a partner which tries to reconstruct the heritage of ecumenical social ethics and a new contemporary ethics of dealing with economy and dealing with new forms of technology like artificial intelligence, because we are now swamped by a wave of artificial intelligence products which are not proven ethically, and they have not yet been examined what actually they will make an impact of in on human culture. So it is very important that there is a think tank like Red, which can stimulate thinking on how to relate the gospel of Christ, and to relate this to current social and political transformation processes, because without a deliberate attempt to understand the ratio, the relation between the two, the danger is that the churches will just follow an very individualistic and inward looking approach, and thereby missing the chances to communicate properly and credibly. So, for me personally, this is one of the main um, uh, insights and the main interests also, that we learn from RED, and RED contributes to international partners in the way of a holistic understanding of development, of sustainability, of peace in society, and of solidarity with indigenous, so the whole realm of indigenous people, which has a very close interlinkage also with regard to ecological concerns. Well, this is a very smart and very good question, and that needs a bit of more exploration also with regard to proper partners in the university and what is their interest. So, in other disciplines, I would certainly be very much in favor of having more interdisciplinary courses between theology on the one hand and sociology on the other. So, theology and sociology are quite close to each other in this regard, but also theology and political sciences, as well as theology and environmental sciences, because all the three disciplines, the additional secular disciplines mentioned now, they play an important role in understanding the social and political context in which we are operating. And therefore, to have joint courses or even joint degrees, so a degree of theology, not just in the area of biblical studies, but theology plus understanding the sociological developments of society, could be an added value. But it also depends on who will recognize these mixed degrees. There is a trend to create mixed degrees in order to assure kind of the connectivity of theology, but we need to make sure, on the other hand, that these degrees lead also to certain professional fields which are recognized, and that those who have accomplished these mixed degree studies, so for instance, a combined course between theology and sociology, at the end can be absorbed in the labor market in a specific area and professional field which makes sense for them, because it does not make sense to promote younger scholars and then end up in a dead end street. You know what I understand? So that to relate, it's a issue. Yes, yeah. I might add one little background for you if you allow, but you should cut me short, because voluntarily. I'm retired, but I work voluntarily also for another organization, which is called Globe Ethics Foundation. And I think Daniel knows this organization, which is located both in Geneva with the head office, but also in regional offices, and one of which is also in Buenos Aires. And they have the major focus on ethics, ethics in an interfaith context. So different religious traditions are participating, and it also works mainly in a very interdisciplinary outlook. So once we deal with AI ethics, which is artificial intelligence ethics, which is this very strong concern nowadays, we cannot work without also taking side and taking into consideration insights of people working with informatics science and understanding the technology. We need to understand the technology if we are to state anything in this regard. Or we work in the area of peace ethics and also ethics of economics. So we need to work with people studying economy or business. So the business study people. And we have quite good experiences. We don't offer basic degrees. It's mainly for those who are studying at the master's degree and can enroll in courses. But in general, the spectrum of courses finds great interest because I think that is what our world needs. Our world cannot go on without ethics, and we need to have more people qualified in in responsible ethics in the different domains. So that would be my little, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Right. Uh-huh. Well, this again is a question for 3 hours conversation, but it's a very crucial question. So I applaud your wisdom in putting these questions, also following this up with other experts. As you know, there is a general trend that development funds and funds for international partnerships between universities are unfortunately going down. This is to be seen in the US trend very strongly, where they close even certain disciplines in university and they send professors or made life difficult for professors so that many of them emigrate to Canada and other countries. Nowadays, it is very difficult. We live in very unfortunate times and we all have to create new and creative solutions for this. I think one has to consider also doing joint planning between income generating projects affiliated to higher education institutions. Higher education institutions cannot solely rely on state funds anymore. This might even apply more in Argentina, where currently there is a state government which is also not too favorite to critical education, unfortunately. At least that is what I observe from the outside. But I think there could be a combination of running an income generating project like a student hostel, like a hotel or whatever, which can generate a steady and stable income to add to the budget of university. It needs then to be in a different legal frame because it cannot be immediately clubbed together. But to rely only on donations and to rely on international partners like German partners, or to rely on student fees, it will not be enough. and it will not provide that kind of financial sustainability which you are working for and which you need to grow as a university. So to enter into a process of exploration with possible strategic partners in the region, uh, whether it is somebody owning a big corporation and offering that the new university setting can be related to this, or any other creative attempt. I don't have a ready-made recipe now how to create new money, but my intuition is to work for creative coalition partnerships, so that you try to get uh, income generating projects on board, which then can sustain can sustain the institution. I'm myself in the role of having to fundraise for this institution I'm responsible for in Geneva, and it's quite a big headache because also in the individual family foundation, which is the area we have relied on, they nowadays focus very much on grassroots development. I mean, building hospitals and healthcare centers for young kids, and so that is all very important. But many of them are saying that academic education, academic research is beyond their mandate. And so it is not easy to find key donors in the area of academic research and academic academic projects like the one you are doing. But we need to convince people that academic research is about creating the inner value system and the inner ethical core of a university. And without that critical knowledge creating think tank, the society will be at loss and society will not have a good orientation. So I would use all arguments to strengthen the profile and the needed value of of a critical university system. Yeah. How big is the inflation right now? Is it still that horrible like it used to be several months ago? It's up. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, I can imagine. And that needs, I mean, to expose other people to this crisis and to organize an international ecumenical team visit of higher education people to Argentina to understand, to allow them to understand your situation, both in the combination of this extraordinary high rates of inflation, but also with the immense needs within society to have better scientific accompaniment, to have better conceptual works, to have better university education. I mean, um, try to use the networks which are there with WCC and the international networks on higher and theological education to bring together a high level visitors group and to allow them to spend a week or so in Argentina and to listen to you, to listen to your examples. So you should not shy away. You should make your concerns an international issue and make that part of the partnership of international churches. Uh-huh. 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 Yeah. Yeah. But it is also good that you mention it even as your personal concern, because I am just wondering, I mean, if a group comes together and could be formed to work out a key document on a general lack of ethics in Argentinian society and politics, as well as in the civil society sector, and if something like this could be published, we could actually join hands and try to do this together between Globe Ethics, which has some good international communication mechanisms and also has access to some foundations to make your concern into a global campaign even, or in raising concern about this dramatic lack of ethics, which you this is really resonates in my ears quite strongly that you have indicated to this. Ah, uh-huh, uh-huh, that's right. Yeah, I fully go with you on this, and I think that sounds excellent. I will try to search for this paper uh, I, via your LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm fine. Well, inclusion is and inclusive governance, as we call it, and inclusive citizenship. That is something we have followed also very much in the Middle Eastern region, because many Middle Eastern countries like Iraq, Iran, Palestine as well, Israel Palestine is a case, a very special case, but they suffer from lack of inclusion and a kind of a monocultural focus just on one ethnic tribe or community, which then has its own family law and is segregated from other religious group. Now, Sunni Muslims, Shiite Muslims, other ethnic and religious communities. So the key problem is how to create an understanding of a nation and a state which has kind of a diversity of ethnic and cultural traditions and communities which are on the same level and are equal in terms of recognition and in terms of dignified relationships. That is a huge problem. We had a consultation, a consultative study on inclusive citizenship, approaches to inclusive citizenship. That was done with Wilton Park, which is a UK-based diplomatic think tank of the foreign ministry. And there is a big paper on inclusivity as a norm, an ethical standard for reconstructing uh, equity and inclusion and participatory mechanism in a society, both on the political and in the economic dimension, that has been quite influential. Now it was all destroyed again by the recent wars. So war in Lebanon destroyed networks which have been working on inclusivity in governance and in democracy and in building up the common good in Lebanon. Unfortunately, in Iraq, it is still kind of in the stalemate. And in Syria, we now hear that we just had in the morning a meeting with somebody who just returned from Syria, that the situation of ethnic and Christian minorities in Syria is very dramatic, and people would expect that the country would move towards a caliphate system, which then categorically excludes a wider inclusivity of religious minorities, which is quite sad, having in mind the huge historical importance of Christianity in Syria, which has had in the past centuries and decades. So inclusion, inclusivity is a huge area, not only in gender justice, what that is firstly the first dimension we could easily think of, but also in the area of ethnic minorities and religious minorities in many countries. We have to fight for democracy, democracy as a common approach and a common value. And unfortunately, we are now living in a situation where this value, even of democratic rule, is deeply put into question by the US and is not taken for granted. So the US, which traditionally have been regarded as the guards, guard rails over against any behavior, they are now moving to a situation of complete dictatorial and arbitrary and you cannot know, it's unpredictable. The political behavior of Trump and his allies is completely unpredictable. So you cannot even do deals with them because it is not taken for granted what will be valid and what will be solid ground in the next day. It is completely changed. It's erratic. What we call erratic styles of leadership. So all the autocrats of this world find now a new model to lean to, and that is so. It's not the discouraging model, but it's an encouraging model what Trump is practicing, and it is a catastrophe. So we have what we call a global recession of democracy, and to work against the global recession of democracy, we can only fight in our own country. In Germany, we have a growing right-wing movement, so we need to fight against the growing right-wing movement in Eastern Germany, for instance, and in many other cities, where they now have reached 25 or sometimes even 30% of the electorate, which is quite worrying for a country like ours with our special history. So each country has its own struggle in this regard, but inclusion is about fighting for democracy and fighting against the recession of democracy, which is a global phenomenon right now. That is my point. The one issue, one is on the thematic level, but the other one is might be even more interesting on the level of admission and course participation, because it is not just an issue about what is on the agenda of teaching and giving classes, and whether you have items referring to inclusion in the learning calendar, which certainly is appropriate and is very much recommended for. But the other thing is, and even more important point, is whether you have deliberate policies allowing for clear mechanisms for including those who are marginalized in your own context, and to have counterbalances to counter exclusion in society by mechanisms of including them in theological and other studies. So if there is a special admission scheme for people who are suffering from disabilities, or from belonging to a minority, a sexual minority, indigenous minority, or other minorities, language minorities, because the more you have people with a minority background involved in common classes, the more they will learn automatically what it means to work for inclusion instead of continuing patterns of exclusion. So it is an indirect pedagogical way of dealing with inclusion, not to put it only in the brain, but to put it in the mechanism of admission, of interacting with people in the classroom. Well, very spontaneously. Well, I think one item which comes back to my mind, which goes back to the last official conversation I had with my friend Daniel Barros, was whether in the next months to come and on this journey towards university, you will have another partners seminar. So an international partners forum where where Daniel and colleagues or you would give some update information on where we are currently with regard to a new university, and then to ask for comments from the international partners, or ask also for ideas for support. So if what we are doing now individually, because you are interviewing me and I answer individually as the guy I am, if that would take place in a platform of common dialogue, so it might be with 15 or 20 people around the screen, because it might be too expensive to bring all of them directly to Buenos Aires, which would be much more fascinating. But I think still it would be worth trying whether an international forum of partner organizations could listen to the updates of the plans and strategies achieved, and to look into issues where encouragement can be given. That would be one idea. The other idea is still whether, kind of, with regard to the emergency situation in terms of economic recession and economic problems in Argentina, whether an international team visit organized with the World Council of Churches and also with ACT Alliance could prove a helpful instrument to broaden the spectrum of international support for you and for the Rate Foundation and for the also for the for the Rio de la Plata Church and for other churches involved. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Maria. It was a special privilege to get to know you first of all and to be in dialogue with you. You have a right heart and mind for doing the work, and I really admire you. And I hope that you can continue working also with Daniel Barros and colleagues around, and that the whole project moves ahead. And it was just very spontaneously what I mentioned to you, so it was not very much prepared, but I think right. Thank you. All the best and give greetings to colleagues. Thank you. All the best. May God bless you. Thank you.